All right, so really lovely to have Paula Sturm back again today to talk to us about another of the 7 essential energies or chakras and how we are best able to use nutrition and food and anything else that Paula wants to tell us about to help us to balance and energize this particular aspect of health and well-being. So Paula is a dietitian and a functional medicine nutritionist, and her business is called Radically Nourished, which is an awesome name. So welcome, Paula. I'd love to get you to start off by talking a bit about this energy, which I like to call connection energy. So in the qualification that we did, food and spirit, then we call it spirit. So it really is a quite high level, high vibration energy. And a lot of what we talk about is to do with purity. So I'd love to get, as a general concept, what are some of the most cleansing or purifying foods that we can eat? Because we often think about, and we will talk about this purification with food in terms of not eating food or, avoiding food for certain periods of time. But I'd love to know, what are some really cleansing, purifying foods that we can incorporate into our diets if we're wanting to access this higher vibration of energy?
Yeah. So, well, eating clean food in general. So, if we are going to be eating, if we're going to be talking about food and the food that we're ingesting while we're working on this connection energy or this spirit energy, we do want to make sure our food is clean. So organic food is really important. So we want to choose foods that have as few chemicals as possible. So not sprayed with lots of pesticides or herbicides, things like that. So I think that's like the major thing, really making sure your food's super clean. And then seeking out food in its least processed form. So whole fruits and vegetables, simple sautés or raw foods, really cleansing there with very few like oils or things like that used, just really light, clean, fresh foods, and lots of salads, things like that. So really aiming to eat a ton of vegetables while you're in this aspect, I guess, because vegetables just have so many essential nutrients like vitamins and minerals that are important to keep your body functioning well. So it can do the process of detoxification as effectively as possible, which is what we want. So we want to have all those nutrients on board to be able to detox. So fruits and vegetables, I think, provide a lot of those qualities. And you do want to have a certain amount of really good, healthy fats, probably more so in their raw form, like extra virgin olive oil or some flax seeds or things that contain healthy fats like flax seeds or nuts and seeds in their whole form. So we can get those beneficial omega-3s that are really important for reducing inflammation and keeping those detox pathways open. And then making sure we're getting enough protein too. We can't forget about protein because there's a lot of essential amino acids that are critical for detoxification, like methionine and things like that, cysteine, that are really important for detoxification to take place. So if we're not getting nourished well enough in the protein standpoint, if we're not getting that essential protein, our detox pathways will be inefficient. And so we won't have an easy time detoxifying the chemicals that we're looking to get rid of in this system, which naturally do build up over time.
And so what happens when our detoxification processes are inefficient? What actually, happens in the body, and, what would we start to notice ourselves?
Yeah, so lots of different things can happen. So we could have, there's a couple different detoxification pathways in our body, actually 3. There's a couple, and it doesn't just happen in the liver either. It happens all over our body. phase 1 detoxification, and there's certain nutrients that help, break down the chemicals that we're looking to excrete, make them water soluble. They go through phase 2 detoxification, and then elimination, which is sweating or urinating or having a bowel movement to get rid of that metabolite. Then after it's sort of gone through making it less toxic, if you will, through those detoxification pathways. And there's a lot of breakdown that can happen in any one of those systems. So if we're not having a bowel movement daily, so if we're not going to the bathroom daily, then we have just a buildup of toxins that are accumulating in our intestinal tract, and that can get reabsorbed into our body. Then our body has to basically re-detoxify it. And so if we have any buildups there, or if we have some congestion within our liver that's impairing those phases of detoxification, and they're not being able to have the necessary processes happen to make them less toxic to get out of our body, there can be some buildups there. And sometimes genes can actually impair that detoxification process as well, where we may have some issues with our genes that just slow it down a little bit. So we need some extra help. And if we aren't getting the nutrition that we need for those processes to work, we're also going to have problems there too. So we're going to see some congestion in our liver. We'll often see congestion in our GI tract. So we could feel more constipated, just heavier. And then the accumulation of those toxins start to come out in other places, or try to come out in other places. So maybe we see that we have more body odor, or we have our skin starts to break out because our body's trying to push these toxins out in any way it can. So it'll push it out through sweat glands or oil glands, or through our skin, because our skin is detoxifying all the time. So your body will try to do those things. And it can also impact our brain function too. So if our GI tract is a little slow, and sometimes if we're getting some of those toxins that are accumulating within our brain, we can have brain fog, or feel tired, feel sluggish. We can just feel like we're not thinking clearly, and we can just have a rough time getting through our day. So there's a lot of different things that can happen. Bad breath could be one, or we just don't feel very bright. We just kind of feel really dull. Maybe we just don't have enough energy to exercise, all sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned about genes, because I actually recently found out myself that I've got two of the MTHFR genes, heterozygous mutations. So yeah, that's something that I think so many people should be aware of, because I think it's about 40% of the population have these kinds of mutations, and it does impair to some degree, and to very varying degrees for different people, their processes of detoxifying. So really important point. Thank you for bringing that up. So you talked a bit about the liver. So can you explain, I guess, in a bit more detail, but in ways that the everyday person will understand exactly what the liver does? Because we're always told that that's, the big organ of detoxification. And thanks for clarifying that it's certainly not the only thing. But what does it actually do, and how do we look after our livers in the best possible way?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, it has a couple phases of detoxification where it transforms those toxins, like say a pesticide, and it makes it from a toxic chemical and makes it more water soluble so it can leave our body. And so there's certain processes and pathways that happen within your body or in the liver to make that more or less toxic for your body, more easily eliminated. Your liver also produces bile, which helps metabolize your fats, or break down or emulsify your fats, which is really important because a lot of toxins are held in fat too. So we want to make sure our liver and our gallbladder, which are connected, your gallbladder stores that bile and is released when you eat. And that bile you want to keep nice and clean and flowing really well, so it can come in while you're digesting your food to emulsify those fats and help them release. And a lot of things can impair that process. Estrogen dominance dominance can impair that as we get older and we have some hormone issues, being on birth control, a lot of different things. Certain medications can slow that bile production, or kind of make it a little sludgy and not make it work as well. So then we're not metabolizing our fats, kind of backs up your liver a little bit, and that whole detoxification process doesn't happen as efficiently. So and then blood sugar issues too can manifest within the liver as well. So for eating, or if we have pre-diabetes or have diabetes, like type 2 diabetes, where we have some mismanagement of how our bodies handle sugar, sometimes it can store that sugar in the liver and can create things like fatty liver. And that can slow down the process of detoxification within your liver as well. And that can impair your digestion and all of those sorts of things as well. So managing your blood sugar is really important when you're talking about liver health, and especially if you have a propensity to have diabetes or pre-diabetes, you really want to get your blood sugar under control to help your liver function better, help you manage your blood sugar better, keep inflammation down. So watching inflammation. So inflammation or chronic inflammation sort of impairs everything if you have it kind of floating around your body. So anytime we can lower inflammation or chronic inflammation within our body, that's going to benefit the health of our liver too. And then, having certain foods that can help your body detox better or keep your liver flowing better, or getting through that detoxification process better. Certain bitter foods are really important for the health of your liver, like milk thistle, which you can drink as a tea or take as a supplement, dandelion greens, eating those, leafy greens in general. So a lot of those bitter tasting foods are really going to be beneficial for that flow of bile, keeping your liver healthy. And then eating lots of anti-inflammatory foods like leafy greens and vegetables and things like that, of course. And then focusing in a lot of the foods that can help your body detox, like cilantro is amazing for helping your body to reduce the heavy metal load that it has on your body, so your liver doesn't have to be so overworked by some of these things. So it helps chelate and remove those minerals or those heavy metals from your body. Things like lemon juice, which can be tart and acidic and get your digestive juices going and moving. Things like garlic and onions that are really high in sulfur compounds that are super critical for detoxification. It's part of that, one of those phases in your liver that helps with detoxification. So that sulfur is really important. And you find those a lot in cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower and kale and onions and garlic, leeks, green onions. Those sorts of compounds are really beneficial for your liver and detoxification.
So it sounds very much like another big tick for like the Mediterranean style diet. All
Yeah, go
of those types of
figure.
vegetables. And just to say, cilantro, in case people in Australia don't know, we call that coriander. And you often notice that that's something, that's recommended to put into a nice green detoxifying smoothie, that you put lots of cilantro in. So that's why. Okay, I didn't actually remember that was so good for detoxification, and it's such a yummy herb anyway. Okay, and then just because we were talking about liver, I also wanted to talk about eating liver, because that's again, and I just kind of wondered whether that helps with our own detoxification processes. The liver of animals is recognized as something highly nutritious and really highly valued in many cultures, as not exactly a delicacy, but just as something it's so valuable to eat it. And in the standard Western diet, we really seem to have moved away from that a lot. But can you talk just a bit about why liver is so good for us to eat, and just any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of nutrients that we don't quite get enough of in our diet that are really concentrated in liver, like vitamin A and vitamin D and B vitamins, and that preformed active versions of those nutrients that our body can really utilize. I think we don't get quite enough vitamin A in our diet, or we definitely don't always get a lot of vitamin D. And if we have certain SNPs like you have, that MTHFR, we need a lot of B12 and folate and things like that in our diet to help with detoxification. And liver has all of those things. It has a good amount of iron, and it's in a natural form, so your body can utilize it and recognize it. And I think there's certain cultures who see eating or ingesting certain organs of the body actually, when you ingest them, actually has like the energetic signature of your own liver to help boost up its vitality. So eating liver supports your liver, eating kidneys helps your kidneys, eating adrenals, glands from another animal actually fortifies and gives you the special compounds that it has to help the health of your own organs. So I do see how that it is beneficial. And I don't personally eat liver, but I do take like really high quality grass-fed liver capsules. So I take it in a capsule form. And I found that incredibly beneficial. And I think when you're eating foods, because it is a food, and then the composition of the minerals and the vitamins that are in there synergistically work together, and your body recognizes that synergy and is able to utilize it really effectively. So I can see its benefit personally, and I do think it is an interesting concept to consume that more often.
Yeah. So with adrenals, if you were eating the kidneys of other animals, would that encompass the adrenal glands as well?
Maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I've not eaten an actual kidney, but I have taken certain supplements that have the adrenal gland portion of it in the it's like the glandular portion. And those are really, if you have really depleted adrenal glands, you want something glandular like that, because it does actually really help boost up your adrenal glands.
Oh, that's really good to know. But so, yeah, and look, I don't like to eat liver either, other than as pate, which I guess then, I mean, I know it's got a really high fat content, and I guess it's, it's not an added fat, but it is a high fat content, and it's probably not something you want to eat tons of all the time, I assume. And I'm not vegetarian or vegan, but if somebody was, is there anything, I mean, and they probably wouldn't even want to take those capsules that you mentioned. So what else can they do to really support their own livers, or to get those nutrients that are so abundant in liver?
Yeah. Well, vitamin A, you really can't get in animal or in plant foods. You have to get it in animal form. So that preformed vitamin A, you have to get in animal form. So you would have to really rely on your body's ability to be able to convert beta carotene into vitamin A. So you find beta carotene in like orange colored foods like sweet potatoes and carrots and orange bell peppers. And you also find it in leafy greens. And so you get a lot of beta carotene, and then hopefully your body will take that into the vitamin A that it needs. Now, not everybody's efficient at that either. So speaking about genes, there can be genes that impede that process and slow it down. And so your body won't get the necessary vitamin A that maybe somebody who doesn't have that gene would. So there is that can complicate it. But things like B12, which are more readily found in animal-based products, you can find in certain plant-based products, spirulina, nutritional yeast, things like that are higher in B12 and those B vitamins that would be necessary. Certain minerals that you'd want to just make sure you're eating a lot of plant foods again, and to get those abundant minerals that seem to be in higher quantities in things like liver. So you just have to really make sure you're focused in really heavily on eating enough vegetables in your diet.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, yeah, let's go down the path of things like intermittent fasting or other, I was interested to get your take on even like water fasting as well. If you can just probably explain to start with what different types of fasting are, what intermittent fasting is, and then, what your thoughts are around it and, who should do it, how often, all those basic things.
Yeah, there's a lot about fasting.
Yeah.
So let's start here. So with fasting, I would say, and then fasting is important and everybody should do at least an overnight fast. I would say everybody could tolerate like a 12-hour overnight fast from
Yeah.
dinner to breakfast. And I think that's actually critical
Mm.
because that without food period that we have is really critical for your digestive system to do its cleaning and sweeping actions. When there's food in your GI tract, your body can't do its necessary sweeping action. There's this migrating motor complex that happens within your GI tract that only happens when there's no food there.
Mhm.
And that's its action of moving, sweeping, and cleaning, almost like a street sweeper in a way, where it just kind of cleans and moves everything out. So it gets rid of the bad bacteria, the food that's sort of left over. And if we're eating constantly and we're eating too close to bed and then waking up and eating again, we don't give our body a good amount of time for that to happen. We can really back ourselves up and we can be more toxic just because of that. So I think it is a good practice for everybody to do like a 12-hour fast at night. And I think it's safe and pretty much everybody can do it unless you have some pretty severe blood sugar issues where you do need to eat more frequently, and that you would need to talk to a practitioner about to make sure that it's appropriate for you. But so that's the safest one to do. So then there's a lot of different other fasts, like doing like 3-day water fast and not eating any food, or doing just juice fasting where you're just drinking straight juices for 3, 5, 7 days and no food. And then there's, just longer intermittent fasting periods where maybe you don't eat for a full day once a week, or you have an eating window in the whole intermittent fasting lingo, eating window of a few hours where you do eat during the day. Maybe your eating windows 4 hours or 6 hours are kind of the common intermittent fasting windows that people will have, and they'll consume all their calories for the day in those eating windows and then not eat for the rest of that period of time. So there can be benefits and to those things. Now, there can be also dangers to those things as well. And maybe they don't work as well for certain populations than others. So you have to know your health status. You have to be pretty healthy in order to handle those longer fasts. Now, where it can get a little tricky is especially with somebody with adrenal fatigue. So we were talking about our adrenals a little earlier. So somebody that might have some adrenal fatigue, or where they're really struggling in the morning to wake up and their energy is really low, and if they've been told they may have some adrenal fatigue, intermittent fasting for long periods where they have maybe a 4 or 6 hour eating window may not be appropriate and may be detrimental and may create more stress on the body, because not eating for a really long period of time is a stress on your body. Now, it can be a beneficial stress if your body is prepared enough to handle it. If it's not, it can be a negative stress. So oftentimes people with thyroid or adrenal issues, it's usually contraindicated, because that fasting, especially longer fasts, longer than like the 16-hour, 18-hour and longer fast, is where it can start impacting your thyroid and impacting how your thyroid functions, and can actually kind of revert your thyroid a little bit and make it difficult for things to come back into normal balance. So you do have to be cautious. So I do think it's something that you need to talk to a practitioner about, especially if you have thyroid or adrenal issues. And oftentimes women are the ones that fall into that category.
Yeah.
So oftentimes women don't do the best with intermittent fasting. And it's not to say that women can't, if they're younger and they're healthier and they don't have any hormonal issues and they're in the peak of their game, yeah, you could probably handle it really well. But knowing that, you need to know that, how healthy you are. Now, men oftentimes have a little bit more resilience around fasting and can handle it a little bit better. And, there are benefits to fasting where your body kind of utilizes the the sugar that it has or the glucose that it has on board and eats that first, and then starts going after some of the fatty acids that you have on your body, so it can keep your metabolism revving up. It can cycle through some of those toxins that are stored in that fat and eliminate that from your body. And oftentimes we're drinking a lot more water, which is flushing our body of a lot of those toxins as well. And so there can be some benefits to it, but I think it needs to be done appropriately and under some care.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you for that. All right. So you mentioned right at the start organic food, and I'd also love it if you can just tell us basically what organic means, and another expression that comes that is used a lot is biodynamic. If you're able to explain what the difference is between the two. And yeah, then I guess the other thing is that a lot of people have some hesitancy because of budgetary constraints around buying organic food. So what your suggestions are for starting to go down that path of trying to get that cleaner whole food into you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So let's start with organic food. So organic, needs to have some regulations around it. At least in the US, we have some regulations around what's considered organic. And usually it's when food or crops are not sprayed with herbicides and pesticides, the chemical versions. Sometimes there's more natural things that they use instead to keep some pests away, but they're not sprayed with any harsh, heavy chemicals that are generally known to cause some health impacts on us and the environment. It has a negative impact on our environment for sure. Yeah. So there's just farming practices that really reduce that chemical load. Now, taking that biodynamic expression, now that is like organic on steroids, basically. So it's uber organic. So not only are they not spraying things with pesticides and herbicides, they are actually supporting the soil, supporting the animal, and supporting the plant. So they're feeding the soil more nutrients to keep it robust and healthy so it can grow healthier food. It usually works in conjunction with like other animals and then plants. And so they're helping each other, where the animal is supporting the health of the plant, and then the plant is used to feed the animal or feed us. And then it's just it's taking into this whole dynamic, holistic form of health. And it often even uses astrology. So it takes the moon cycles as well to plant or harvest, whatever phase of the moon is, and to do that. And it does make sense. The moon does have an impact on our tides and things on our earth. So it would seem to impact the growing health and cycles of our plants as well. So it is an interesting concept, and I hope more farmers start to do it, because I think it just makes more sense from a holistic standpoint. The health of our planet, the health of the animals, the health of the plants, the health of us, takes all of that into consideration. Yeah. And so I love the practice of it. And you don't see a ton, at least I don't see a ton of it in our stores anyway. I do hear of a lot of farmers, like at farmers markets, where they do more biodynamic farming. So I'm hoping it becomes more of a trend.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's regenerative, which is what we've got to go down the path of if we want to continue to be able to supply our growing population with food. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that. So, and then what about, how would you suggest people first start to approach moving to organic purchasing?
Yeah. So, and it's not like you have to buy everything organic, especially if it's not in your budget. So really, especially if you're seeking it out for health reasons, seeking out the foods that tend to have the higher pesticide amounts. So you can go on to the environmentalworkinggroup.org or ewg.org, and they do have this Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 lists, and they publish them every year of the foods that tend to have the most pesticide exposure and the least. And commonly it's things like apples and leafy greens and bell peppers and I'm trying to think of some of the other things on there. Yeah, just peppers in general have the most spray, or the softer fruits like peaches, strawberries, all the berries. So you want to really get berries, greens, bell peppers, organic as often as possible, because those are going to be the ones that have the spray, or the spray that it's hard to really wash off. The softer the fruit, the more it absorbs. And so you can't really wash it off. And not to say that it doesn't get systemic into the food too, but at least being able to wash it off is beneficial. Now, things like avocados or bananas or onions or garlic, those foods tend to have less spray, or they have like a covering that you remove, and so you won't have that contact to the actual food. So maybe not buying those types of things organic, and you can save some money that way.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Now, just again for my Australian people who are getting this information, I did recently learn that the clean 15 dirty dozen list really do not apply very well in Australia. However, all the things Paula just mentioned are correct here as well. Definitely they're the ones to buy organic. But yeah, really for us, the chemicals that are used, the ways they're used, the ways that things are assessed and what is allowed and what isn't allowed is quite different to the US. So those lists aren't so useful to us, but I just did recently update a blog that I had that basically lists all those things that Paula just mentioned that are definitely applicable here as well. And it's a matter of using common sense and going, well, if I'm going to peel or to remove the outer covering of that plant food, then I probably don't need to worry so much about it being organic. Whereas the ones that you're going to bite into the skin of it and eat the skin of it, you absolutely should be considering getting those organic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. To make it simple. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for that. So yeah, I just wanted to cover as well the central nervous system. I don't know if there's any other different things that you'd suggest for looking after the health of our brain with regards to nutrition, and this, because this energy is all definitely associated very much with brain health. Do you have any other suggestions with that?
Yeah, well, keeping the health of your gut in check is pretty critical. So that whole gut brain axis is a thing. It's definitely critical. If you don't have a healthy gut, you're not going to have a healthy brain. So making sure your gut's in order is going to benefit your brain hugely. And also doing some vagal nerve work. Sometimes when people are under a lot of stress or have had a lot of trauma, it can impact the health of their vagus nerve, and that can make you overreactive. And sometimes there is an impact too, like with the health of your GI tract. If you have something going on in your GI tract, that is going to throw off your vagus nerve in and of itself. So those infections or potential dysbiosis in your gut can impact the health of your vagus nerve. But oftentimes trauma and stress, chronic stress, can impact it as well. So there's certain vagal nerve activities that you can do to stimulate it. So it kind of runs from the base of your neck down to your GI tract. And it can impact your fight or flight response. And sometimes when we're in that chronic fight or flight response, even when there's nothing to be essentially anxious about, your vagus nerve and your whole fight or flight response will be super activated. And so calming it down is really critical. So doing things like really deep breathing, where you're using your diaphragm to breathe really deeply in and out, can help that. Gargling and stimulating the back of your throat. So humming and singing loudly, gargling, gagging can actually stimulate that vagus nerve and help the health of it as well. So brushing your teeth is probably the best time to do those things, gag a little bit and hum a little bit and gargle a whole bunch of water, and you've stimulated your vagus nerve for the day. Also, splashing your face with really cold water too can stimulate that as well. So I think that vagus nerve can be really impactful, especially if somebody does have a slow digestive system or a lot of stress or fight or flight responses going on. So I think that can be super helpful. The health of your gut can be really critical for that as well. And then just eating a lot of omega-3s, especially that DHA, is really important for your brain health and just keeping your brain in good shape and keeping your mood elevated. So that DHA is really critical too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's your nuts and seeds and good oils and things like that.
Yeah. Fish. Yeah. Fish oils.
Yeah, of course, fish. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then also within the brain, we talk about the pineal gland as being associated with this particular energy. And this gland certainly has a lot to do with our sleep. So I guess if you can just again give us a 101 of what the gland does, and then what your suggestions would be from a nutritional perspective to help us with sleep if we're having problems with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the pineal gland excretes melatonin, which is kind of works counter with cortisol. So cortisol is what helps us, the circadian rhythm, to get us up in the morning, and then gradually decreases during the day. And then sort of later in the day, your melatonin starts to kick up, and that's what helps you fall asleep. And it really is dictated on the light dark cycles. So really getting your body entrained with the light of day. So waking up in the morning and basically sleep, a proper sleep starts in the morning. So as soon as you wake up, but if you wake up super early and it's dark out, at least try to get some bright light in your eyes somewhere from a light in the kitchen, or as soon as the sun comes up, getting outside and getting that light in your eyes, getting those photons and all of that light energy in your eyes sets a timer basically in your pineal gland and in your brain to recognize, okay, this many hours later is when I need to kick in melatonin production so we can fall asleep. Yeah. And if you can see some sunset in through your eyes as well and get that evening sun into your eyes to see the gradation of the oranges and the blues, that sort of triggers again your brain to recognize that, okay, it's almost time for bed now. So that is a powerful way to reset your circadian rhythm, and just seeing light first thing in the morning, and try to do it also in the evening. But then there's certain nutritional things that you can have that have natural melatonin in them. So if you do happen to have lower melatonin, you could drink or eat some cherries, tart cherry juice. A little of that, a couple hours or an hour or so before bed, has a good dose of melatonin that I know a lot of people, I recommend it to my clients all the time, and it just knocks them out like a light. Instead of taking a melatonin pill, which sometimes can be too strong for people. So they may need a little extra boost, but sometimes the pills just have super physiological doses of melatonin, and it almost makes them a little hungover in the morning, so they don't like it. But cherry juice has a nice low dose, enough just to kind of trigger that sleep response in the body. So cherry juice is one that I often recommend for people. Pistachios actually have some melatonin in them as well. So snacking on those maybe in the afternoon to stimulate a little extra melatonin from food in your diet. Those are a couple that I often recommend for melatonin.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that about the cherry juice. That's great. All right. And then, so as I mentioned, this energy is really the highest vibration energy when we talk about the seven. And as I said, Food and Spirit calls it the spirit energy. So many cultures do use eating as a spiritual practice, and unfortunately, again, in our standard Western eating practices, we don't do that. But is there what do you have any suggestions around what people could do to make eating more of a spiritual thing to bring that awareness back?
Yeah, and I think it's important that we bring that back too, because it brings us more in touch with our bodies. It brings us more in touch with our food, and it doesn't have to be from any religious standpoint. It just is honoring your body and honoring your food. And it's a moment in your day where you can kind of be in the moment, and utilizing your meal times as times for just being mindful and in the moment, to de-stress, to relax a little bit, instead of feeling like meal times can be so stressful and we rush through them, or we're busy doing other things and rushing through them, which happens. I mean, we're super busy, but if we can, a lot of the time anyway, take that meal time as sacred, and at least stop everything you're doing, be intentional about creating a meal, enjoy the process of creating the meal, no matter how simple it is. Even if you're just making a salad with some rotisserie chicken, you can still, be in the present moment, cutting your lettuce and your tomatoes and your cucumbers and throwing the chicken on and having your meal, but honoring the process of it, saying a little gratitude, being grateful for the fact that you have food, that this food is going to be nourishing for you, saying a little thank you for that. That gratitude's super powerful. And then I think what that does is it also centers our bodies to recognize that we're eating. And so our digestive system can start stimulating digestive juices and be prepared to digest food when we're not, running from one thing to a next and hardly paying attention to what we're eating. We often don't digest our food as well. So having that moment to have some gratitude before we eat, take a deep breath before we eat, and just being thankful for having food, eating the food with the others that are with us, or saying thanks for the people who brought the food to you, and just enjoying the moment of eating and being in the present moment while you eat. And once you're done, you can go run around like a chicken with your head cut off and do what you need to do for the day, but at least stop and have a moment to eat a few times a day.
Yeah. I think that's really important. And let's not add to our stress by making ourselves feel like we have to do that for every meal, but at least try and do it for one meal a day, everybody. It's not that hard, and it's going to, you're going to feel better for doing that. I'd love to just finish on white colored foods, because we always talk about these 7 energies in relation to colors, because the energy vibrates on a particular level of the color spectrum. And for connection energy or spirit, we talk about white. And just wondering, is there a particular innate cleansing quality to the white foods, and what are some of your favorite white foods?
Well, I think there's, like the garlic, the onions, the cauliflower, since they fall in that sulfur category, they just hone themselves to be more detoxifying. So I think that's where the power is for them. And, so that's where I think the main power is that detoxification of those white foods. And those happen to be my favorite. I mean, I love onions. I can't get through a meal without garlic. And cauliflower is so universal. You can make pizza out of it. I put frozen cauliflower rice in my smoothies, and I make mashed potatoes with my cauliflower, so it's really useful because it's so mild but yet so powerful in its nutrients that I think it gets overlooked, although I think it's gaining some popularity just because of its universality. But so I love cauliflower for sure.
So do you mean you add cauliflower to your mashed potato? So it's potato with...
Well, it's, I guess, no potatoes, but you could do that. You could. Okay. I have done both, or celery root or parsnips, which are both white too.
Yeah.
And add that to the cauliflower and mix them all and whir them together all in a blender or food processor. Or you can just use the cauliflower in and of itself and make the puree out of the cauliflower and use it as a mashed potato replacement.
But so do you add anything to it if you're doing it as a mashed potato replacement?
Sometimes I'll add some garlic, or I'll add some parsnip, or I'll add some celery root, depending if I want to have a little, like adding a little starchier vegetable like parsnips or celery root to the cauliflower will just give a little bit more starchy consistency. So it's a little, more comforting that way, but you definitely don't have to add any of those things. But I'll definitely add, salt, pepper, olive oil to, just enhance the flavor.
Yeah, to make it kind of smoother than like cauliflower rice. That's what I was trying to think. How is it different to cauliflower rice? Okay. Yeah, no, I love cauliflower as well. I love to roast it with turmeric. That's my favorite cauliflower thing. And cauliflower soup is so good as well because it's so creamy. Yeah, it's just, a vegetable that you need to get in every week because it's so good.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Paula, once again. And I'd love it if you can just let everybody know how they can get in touch with you, because I know you do remote consultations, don't you? So it doesn't really matter where anyone is in the world. How can they best reach you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, which I am currently in the process of getting redone, but currently it's radicallynourished.com. So you can go there, and probably that towards the end of the year, that should be a brand new website. So I'm super excited about that one. And then you can also go to my Facebook page, which is Radically Nourished, or Instagram, which is radically_nourished. And then you can find me in those areas there.
All right. Thank you so much, Paula. It's been really great to talk to you again. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.